Okay, guys, we are here today with the makers of Audio House. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Tyler Gibbs. I'm technically like business operations. You could say CEO, but that's kind of a title that just gets thrown around a lot. And that's what I do at Audio House.
He's the businessy guy. I'm AJ, mostly tracking, a little bit of producing, educational outreach, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm Todd. I kind of do a lot of the quality control and mixing and the mastering for the studio. So
And like product development has been like a huge part of what you do too.
a lot of development as well. Customer outreach. Whatever. I mean, we do everything. You know, we're owners, so we kind of dabble in a little bit of everything.
So you guys are alumni of Paradigm. What was your experience in Paradigm?
So we graduated in 2013, so it was pretty different back then. Let's see. So we were just talking about it before the recording started, but I think the only teachers that are still here are Fernando, Seminario, and then Cavallero, right? And I think a lot of our experience here, I kind of tell people my experience was kind of split in half. So when I was a 9th grader and a 10th grader, it was a really great experience. I had a really good time. And then as an 11th and a 12th grader, I wasn't here very often. So
That's how it goes.
I got a lot of my credits done earlier on. Tyler's and AJ's situations are very different from mine, but I wasn't here probably for 3 out of the 5 school days in my senior year.
I think I had 3 classes my senior year.
I think I had a similar experience, but I was enrolled in several classes, several more classes than I attended. But unfortunately,
Tyler almost didn't graduate. So
and actually, if it wasn't for, I think being completely serious, if it wasn't for the absolute sincere love that I felt from the counselor at the time and primarily a couple teachers or mentors that we had here, I don't think would have graduated. And so maybe a similar experience of, 9th and 10th grade looked a lot different than 11th and 12th grade, but 11th and 12th grade for me was a lot of fun, mixed in with a lot of mentors having to work around me to get me to gain the skills that I needed to graduate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
In a way, I mean, Paradigm is kind of the reason why Audio House even exists.
it's true.
Because kind of our background in starting a studio is that we all were in a band together, in our 11th grade.
When we were in 2011, so we were 11th graders, I guess. What we were kind of known for at the time, in our time, was we were the ones that started a metal band with a bunch of our buddies. They were all a year ahead of us. One of them, Wally Overstreet, his mom taught here for a while. We started a band, and I think we were kind of the first group of kids that kind of was really vocal about like, hey, like we're in a band and stuff like that. Because there had been other bands, but they were never like
us.
Yeah, they were never like going around pretty much being like pick me girls, they were just kind of doing their things. We were the ones that were like, hey, pay attention to us, come to our shows.
We were very attention hungry.
We were very attention hungry kids. A lot of these kids, we were kids that I think that we all kind of sought validation from external sources just because of the way we grew up or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Well, and I remember because of Paradigm, thankfully, our very first show, we sold more tickets than that event promoter had ever seen a young high school band sell. And it was all because Paradigm students, it was like over 70 tickets.
Yeah, we were like the second or third highest seller for our first show ever before we even played anything. Like,
Yeah.
we had nothing recorded.
That's crazy.
So,
Yeah.
That is kind of
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was pretty cool. It was kind of crazy because our first show, there were probably like maybe 400. It was a fully packed venue. Like so many people were there from front to back. It was just faces, right? And we completely botched our set. It was not. Our performance was bad. We forgot to tell people our names, so nobody was able to find us afterwards if they even did like our music.
Yeah. But the point was that our fellow students came out to support
Yeah,
us.
they came in clutch. So.
Yeah.
And for almost all of our shows after that, there was probably a group of like 6 or 7 just Paradigm people that would always come to our shows and always
Come to have a good time.
always have a really good time. There was one guy, his name was Johnny, and I remember it was a tradition of his to rip a shirt at every location.
Every single show.
There was one show, we played one show in like an old Catholic chapel. It was like a really small show, like it was really last minute. We had no audience. There was maybe 2 people in our audience at that day, and then just a bunch of bands talking in the back. And I remember he was still there going crazy, sweating, ripping his shirt for the rest of the
guy.
So the other Paradigm students really came in clutch for us our entire band career when we were in
That's
high
awesome.
school.
I mean, even after high school, there were students that we had gone to school with that continued to come out to shows.
Even teachers. There were some teachers that came to some shows as well. I think Fernando came to a show at one point, like later on too.
Yeah.
So
That's an experience to see a former teacher of yours moshing at your show.
Yes,
yeah, he was getting turned.
That's so fun.
But I would say that in a nutshell is pretty representative of our experience just in terms of like relationship dynamics at Paradigm. Obviously, it was really different then than it was now, like where you guys have your, well, is it still like the middle school section, like that hallway
Yeah, the
right
prep
there?
school,
The
yeah.
prep school. Like it wasn't that back then. We had more rooms and like there were some classes that had like 4 or 5 students for the whole semester.
And it was only high school. There was no
Right.
It
prep
was only
school.
high school,
Yeah.
just 9th to 12th grade. I mean, just they were pretty much just getting everything set up because we were all freshmen like the second year that this building was in business because they were at a warehouse before that. So
I think some previous teachers called it the hippie years.
the hit
Kind of just like, we'll figure this out.
yeah, and it was a lot of that even when we were here too. A lot of the teachers were pretty new, and so they were kind of like go with the flow and everything. There was a couple of teachers I remember kind of became really big life mentors to us. Do you guys still call them mentors here?
Yeah.
So they were like not only mentors at Paradigm, but they became like big life mentors and good friends of ours later on,
There's still a couple that
There's
I
still
feel
a
like
couple,
I go
yeah.
to frequently, and that really have become lifelong mentors in personal matters, business things.
Yeah. Well,
so
like-
a lot of things.
I mean, go ahead.
I used to play music with Barfus and Friedrich.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say that's the only band I remember.
Well, that's what I was
being
going
at
to say
Paradigm.
is you played music with the old teachers for a while too. So, I mean, Fernando and I were good friends. I mean, AJ and I came back here to work, for about a year and everything as paraeducators, special ed. I don't know what the term is these days. So, like, I would say that it's like, it's for me, I tell people it's kind of a love-hate relationship because it's like, this was high school. I want to move on and just like live. But like,
where I'm at right now.
yeah, but so much of my kind of experience shaping how I grew up, like my teenage years, is directly influenced by some of the people that I met here. Like there's people that were only teachers here for 1 year that had this profound experience on my life. Our biology teacher when we were in 10th grade, she's a teacher that not a lot of the other students got along with because she was pretty strict.
Right. Yeah.
And her and I butted heads a lot until she took me aside and actually genuinely asked me, like, are you doing okay? Do you want to talk about anything? Because this was a time where, when we're in high school, we all struggle with a lot of things, and depression has been one of my biggest issues since I was a kid. And just having someone care enough to talk to me about that kind of ended up making it like, all right, this is my homie. Like, I love this teacher, friend for life kind of thing, even if we don't like talk these days and stuff like that. So I think that it's like you love that aspect of Paradigm and just the atmosphere that created this level of being able to actually create some sort of relationship, a genuine relationship, not just a teacher-student relationship, but like a relationship as friends with some of these people. But you hate that there's still so much from high school where it's like, I just wanted to leave high school in the past and move on with my life kind of thing.
I think springboarding off of that, Paradigm really, because of both of the natural nature of the band and what we were doing and the experiences that we had with the band, and also what you were just talking about with mentors and the personal impact that they had in our lives, even in just personal conversations that would be very brief. I think like Paradigm really was I don't want to say foundation, but I would say maybe like catalyst to me actually like gaining, this is kind of like maybe some personal deeper things, but just gaining like any sense of self-awareness that was positive and meaningful, confidence, the willingness to actually go out and experiment and do the things I wanted to do was all really facilitated from mentors that would have serious conversations with me, serious, hard one-on-one conversations with me in a loving way where there was no judgment felt, and pairing that environment with awesome friends who had similar goals and values and were trying to do something really fun with music gave me, at least specifically, like gave me both an emotional support and a channel in which I could direct that energy into actually like accomplishing things and doing things that normally aren't done in a school setting, and really have been like the foundation to why I went into business and all these things. And a lot of it was just the success that we had in the band and the support that I got from mentors.
Yeah. That's awesome. I don't know, like that's something so cool that I've kind of felt definitely in the years that I've been here. But like there's been times where, I don't know, I just didn't really care about my writing. And so I'd just like write a paper or something. And one of my mentors would come up to me, read it. He'd be like, okay, you know, like this is pretty bad. but I don't know, he helped me all the way through. And I revised that paper so many times. And each time he would look like he was just willing to take that time and work on it, just because I had asked him, be like, okay, I really want my writing to get better, right? So what can I do to do better? And he would just revise it over and over and over again, just every single time, new tips. And eventually I got to a point where it turned out pretty well. And then papers after that weren't like perfect. They weren't as perfect as that one, but they eventually just got way better and better and better. It's just because that teacher cared so much.
Yeah, he was willing to put the work in because he knew you could do better.
That's one thing I've noticed, that Paradigm, kind of the atmosphere has always done pretty well. Whenever the student feels like they're cared about, then the student begins to care. And as long as you actually care about your own work, the teacher's going to continue reinvesting in you. Because like it's exactly what you said. It's like, well, I guess I can do better, so I'm actually going to try this time. And then once you've shown a hint of like, oh, like, you know, I'm actually going to put some effort in, then they keep extracting all the rest of the effort from you until you have given the best that you can in that, you know, your sphere of ability at that time. And there's a lot of situations where that kind of, I guess, awakened in me like lots of passions that I have now that I didn't even realize before I was, you know, in 9th, 10th grade or whatever. Like for me, I love literature. I've always wanted to write a novel, and, you know, just based on novels take a lot of time, and there's not a lot of time in my life these days. But I mean, I remember there was something in like 9th or 10th grade, and one of the teachers said something to me along the lines of like, you should write a novel. And so there's always been like in the back of my brain, like, I think I'm going to do it at some point. It's just a matter of when, you know?
Yeah.
So they kind of extract these things from you that kind of help you develop this sense of like, whoa, actually that is like a passion of mine. I would like to do that. That's pretty cool. So, which I think is a very admirable quality to be able to pull out of the students that are willing to actually put in the work themselves. So
something you said that was very interesting is like extracting passions out of you. I've actually been like going through that recently because I'm big into music. Like that's my thing. I love music. I've been playing bass for a really long time. Nice. I've been playing trombone since 4th grade.
Nice. My brother plays trombone.
Yeah, it's so fun. But like I even have a blister right now for my bass because I was just playing for 2 hours before you guys got here. Right.
That's how it should be.
Anyways, so I was really just into music, and then we got a new orchestra director this year, and he started talking to me about like his concerts and stuff that he does because he has a band that he's in. He actually plays with Sam, who I saw was on your guys' website. Sam Alba.
Sam Alba?
Is he part of the Niños?
Yes.
What's his name?
Daniel.
Daniel. Isn't he the drummer?
I don't know. I think he's the drummer's brother.
I do know the Niños, though. I am familiar with them.
He plays with them. And he's super cool. And like that really got me thinking about like musical production and everything that you guys are doing, which I think is so cool. And like that's something that I found is like becoming a passion of mine, like writing music, mastering audio, and like just being able to record stuff. And that's one reason this podcast became a thing, was just because like I want to learn more about audio and editing and everything like that. It's so cool.
Yeah, podcasts are a great introductory thing to getting into audio. I feel like it's like not super complicated, but still equips you with all the tools you need to explore kind of the more complex areas of the musical realm. So
it's the same basic principles, whether it's podcast, music, audiobooks, like.
Yeah, it's
let's
so
take
cool.
that excerpt of audio and let's send it to Seminario, and let's get a studio here next semester.
Yeah, let's do it.
That would be so cool.
I guess that is one
cool.
part that we didn't mention.
Yeah, we should probably talk maybe if we can lead into it what Audio House does.
Yeah.
So Audio House builds like fully professional recording studios basically into shipping container type structures, right? So we have the ability to put them, really to penetrate any community, to put them anywhere. So the most straightforward thing that we say is that we build self-serve recording studios, partner with places that want them, and then open those studios up 24/7 for people to self-serve record themselves.
Right.
So it enables a school to be able to have, not to bash the equipment that we're recording on right now, but a school or whoever to have access to professional recording equipment in a room that's acoustically treated, that's soundproof. We're not getting reflections from the walls and the windows like we are now. And so everything that the students can make is finally not limited by the equipment that's available to them normally at a school, but really they can actually start to transparently show, look, this is what I'm capable of.
Right,
I can finish that creative cycle because that roadblock of equipment and acoustics and things that are normally troubles with audio is removed. So you really can explore limitlessly your own talent and your passion for that. Whether it's as a solo artist or as a class or even just English students doing podcasts, whatever it might be. So anyway, so we build those studios. We make whatever negotiation we can to make it work with the school or whatever retail place we're putting it at. Yeah. But then they're also open to the public to use as well. So on a financial, we don't need to dive too deep into this, but on a financial level for us, we don't even really care about making a lot of money or any money really from the commercial customer, the school, or whoever that we're working with. It's actually all about making music accessible or making the resources accessible for the public to be able to use. And then we actually charge the public's time at just $10 an hour for them to have access to that.
That's actually genius. I love everything about that.
I think that's so cool. The cool thing that we've noticed about, running a recording studio like this, I guess, is, well, and for better or for worse, I guess I have to add that disclaimer as well. A lot of people who never would have pursued music seriously actually have the opportunity to do so now. When you build studios in a smaller, more compact space that is also mobile, you cut a lot of the fees that are usually tacked on at this, these brick and mortar studios that you have to go to. So the cost ends up being, even on a professional level for kind of just like regular clientele and everything like that, it's still cheaper than other studios, but you still get all the benefits of sound acoustic treatment, quality gear and everything. And then obviously you have engineers and producers to kind of oversee the overall quality as it goes through the pipeline and everything. You have people who you're able to kind of collaborate and do what you want in your sphere and have complete creative control over it, and still have it end up sounding professional afterwards. I mean, we wouldn't be in business if we weren't good at what we do on a quality level, as well as offering something that's innovative, Because people only care so much about innovation if they only care about it if it's actually like good,
that makes sense, right? Yeah.
If it adds value to them, and something like this is great, but on its own, a lot of like the commercial kind of the people who are looking for commercial recording studios, what really gets them is like, not only is this innovative and giving me something where I have complete creative control, but it still competes quality-wise. Yeah. And I think that that's something that's so game-changing, is like you combine the quality with the innovative, the accessibility and everything like that. And our goals are pretty ambitious with it because we know that it can make legitimate change. We've seen what it does for students and people that just get into music. A couple of the people that we work with commercially now were once, students at the other school that we have a location at right now, right? And so I think that it's this deal of like sky's the limit because you're the one setting the boundaries and the limits for it, we're not telling you like, all right, your time's up, or all right, that's good enough or whatever. We're the ones pretty much indulging you with every idea that you have. And it's pretty much up to, you, the creative person, to kind of decide like how far you want to go with it, which I think is the cool thing because, if you're like, I want to get in and do a couple of extra sessions, or like I have this great idea, I need to get to the studio now, you can go and you can rent time for an hour or 2 hours at like 3 a.m. and get your idea out there. And that's the cool thing about it, is it's true accessibility.
Right.
Because accessibility shouldn't mean just, oh, it's cheaper. Accessibility should mean like I can go in whenever I need to.
I can access it. It's
I can
nearby.
access it, yeah.
It's nearby, it's understandable. And for that same reason, I mean, I would argue that it's actually, that the quality is actually higher in one perspective of thinking about this than the traditional $1 million studio that has all the outboard gear and everything that you salivate over.
Right.
Because while you might be sitting there salivating over it, the truth is you don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And so what good is that equipment on a quality perspective if you as a musician or a creator can't go there and begin to use it to create?
Yeah.
What's the quality going to be like if you're using the equipment completely poorly?
Right. Yeah.
Great quality equipment that's difficult to use will not produce high quality results.
Right.
And so the way that we design our studio simplifies things in a way. I mean, we focus on self-serve so that a creator can go in and without any experience be able to use the equipment effectively and efficiently in a way that your quality will actually be a direct reflection of your creativeness rather than a direct reflection of your technical ability on outboard gear.
Right. Yeah. That is, I can't tell you how much I wish like I had something like this. Paradigm has tried because I've got kind of a crazy personality, and Mr. DeBono has worked with me to like make sure I can create the things that I want to be creating and doing the things that I want to be doing. And I've really taken charge of that. And I like want to be doing these things, and they've provided us with these mics. They bought me this MacBook Pro. Like there's all these other things that they're providing me with. It's just not quite at that level because they sadly can't do that. But like that's expensive. Everything I want. Yeah.
And that's like the big thing too, is audio gear is so expensive, and
creating the environment, soundproofing. Oh my gosh.
Soundproofing you wouldn't believe how much money we spend just to make sure that the sound quality is good inside of these trailers, these studios.
Yeah,
you know?
We have a practice room in the orchestra room, and we put foam in it and stuff and like sound treated it. But we usually record in there, but we have too many people for how small that room is. And so like it's good for solo stuff, but these group things, we need something bigger. But
well, like in just having, I don't know, even just having like this kind of stuff, like my years before, like in 9th grade and 10th grade, we didn't have this. The ability to record at like here has only been since just last year. And it pulls, like, it makes kids want to do stuff they didn't even know they wanted to do.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know I'd want to be on a podcast. Like, you know, and since then, like, me and him have made like a little music video, and like we've done some fun stuff. And it's just so much fun, and like having that better quality stuff can really because sometimes that can stop kids.
It enables you, And I think that's like the thing too that I think reflects that kind of our paradigm experience, my paradigm experience especially, this idea of like as soon as you're enabled, like you begin extracting that creativity, which I think is something really cool, because they're like, you know, like I said, music has, I mean, both with what we're trying to do and just kind of the way the culture has shifted, music has become a lot more accessible these days.
Right.
It's not just something that you need to get the label to sign you and then pay for a record deal so that you can actually record at a professional studio. You don't need to do that anymore. Like, anyone can book at a local recording studio. Money is obviously a factor, accessibility on all that stuff. And what we're trying to address is the way that things have evolved in the modern era and make it even better. Right. The thing that I love about what you guys are saying too is like, even with, you know, kind of entry level gear, because, you know, the Blue Yetis and everything, USB microphones, all of it is pretty much a way to get your foot in the door. You don't want to stick with it forever, obviously. But the thing that's so cool about it is, like you said, it's made you guys and other people feel like, actually, there's some stuff I want to try. There's some stuff I want to do. Some more background, like this is, I guess, background of how we even got into doing audio as a profession in the first place. Because, I mean, we talked about how we were in a band, but we didn't talk about how we got into it professionally, right?
Right, yeah.
Like, so AJ and I have known each other since we were freshmen at Paradigm. So that's been 12-ish years now, 12 years, right? So AJ and I started making music together. AJ's a drummer, I'm a guitarist. We would take like my little box or his little box amp, because I didn't even have an amp or an electric guitar at the time. We'd go to his house. We would play Blink-182 covers, and the drums would be super loud. You couldn't hear the guitar at all, but we'd record
like a
videos.
little 15-watt practice.
Oh gosh, yeah.
We'd record videos of ourselves doing that, and at one point, like, do you guys know what Audacity is?
Yeah, that's what we're using.
Yeah, Audacity, pretty like entry level as far as DAWs go, as far as audio workstations go. We would record like crappy little demos into it, like some of our favorite bands, like A Day to Remember, Blink-182. Like I'd record like a guitar part into it, and then we'd take the crappy microphone, I'd hold it over the drum set, and record AJ playing the drums over that guitar part. It wouldn't line up. Obviously, it didn't sound good, but like, even those crappy recordings, we were still pumped about, which I think is the cool thing about it, is like we've come to a point now where I think I'm a little jaded because I've been doing it professionally for so long, but I think about 15, 16-year-old me being so pumped about a garbage demo that didn't sound good. The vocals weren't good. You know, we didn't know what we were doing, so at the time we told our vocalist, like, you have to stand exactly this distance away from the mic.
I told him that, and it was completely wrong.
Oh gosh.
You can't move forward or backward from the microphone. You need to stay at the same volume. Stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. But we finished our own self-recorded demo with like 2 or 3 crappy microphones that Tyler had bought with his own money from working at Papa John's.
Papa John's.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And like we finished it, and it sounded like crap, but we were pumped about it. You know, it was like so cool to have something recorded for ourselves. Yeah, we like gave it to people. We recorded a toilet flushing for a song because we're juvenile.
Right. Yes.
But like that in and of itself was it was magical. You know, it was this type of experience where I wouldn't trade it for anything because it got us. Eventually, it was that spark that eventually made us think we should actually record ourselves, because we went to a professional studio to do our next demo after that as a band. And then we kind of thought to ourselves, it was mostly Tyler at the time, thought to himself, like, we can do all this stuff ourselves. And so we did. Like, we started doing all of our own recordings for our own music. Right. And eventually, like,
all of my paychecks for the rest of my life. All of
some of the gear we use these days is still gear that Tyler bought when he was 17.
Holy cow.
all the acoustic foam in our Salt Lake trailer was in my mom's basement.
Oh gosh.
The speakers I use for mixing are ones that Tyler bought when we were 17.
Which is so good I did my research, just saying.
They're still
There you go.
They're still great. They're vintage now, I'd say. So but the thing that's so cool about that is we, like, at some point we started doing all this ourselves. At one point we recognized that I had a bit of a better ear for mixing, and so I kind of stepped into the mixing chair a little bit, and then kind of at one point realized, like, wait, I'm actually kind of like good at this.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, while we were still playing shows as a band, we were recording our own stuff. We did a demo for another band who, they were good friends of ours. So we were like, just indulge us. Let us try recording this for you, see how it turns out. And it wasn't great because we were like 17-year-old kids, you know, like there's only so good you can get with such minimal quality and everything, but the magic in your basement, in your dad's basement,
my dad's basement,
without any acoustic treatment, with like the fans running in the background, the toilet flushing.
That's so funny.
All that stuff, I think we're just using that to highlight how cool it is to actually feel like, because the only reason that we had access to any of this stuff was because Tyler spent money on it first, and because at some point we recognized, like, we really like this. Recording ourselves is really cool. And we also felt, I think we all kind of felt like there's like a spark there. There's like some magic to recording yourselves. It's really cool to be able to make your own music without having to go to someone else in order to get it done. Like being in your sphere, in your space, and creating on your own terms with no one else to be accountable to.
Not
on a
worried
creative
about the
level.
time, because you're like, I'm paying this guy $50 an hour. Like,
not worrying about
stop talking, start recording.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Not having an engineer be like, oh, I don't think that would sound good, which that happens more than you think. You know, like it was.
Sometimes they flat out refuse to do your idea. You'll say like, I want to do this thing, and they're like, oh my gosh, no, that's going to be horrible.
But all the greatest songs come from people who are just ready to try something weird.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that, all that just highlights kind of our background with that, and us getting into it was very much this process of like, wow, we really like this. And it feels really cool to be able to do all of this stuff ourselves. And we obviously feel very liberated and empowered by it. And it translated into like, we want to start a recording studio, you know, because not only are like we good at it, but I think it was a little mixture of everything, but it was like, we're good at it. You know, Tyler was going to school at LDSBC at the time, and he had to start a business to graduate. That was hard.
Right. Yeah.
And then obviously we kind of had this idea of like making.
We were young adults that needed to actually start thinking about making money too.
Yeah.
So that was like a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that we felt very like, you know what, we just like love music. We want to work in music. We didn't know what it was going to look like now at the time. And just like right now, we don't know what it'll look like in 2 or 3 years, right? But it's been about, 4 years now since we were recording people. And we've moved a lot where we've been recording people. And obviously the quality's improved and stuff. But it really, I think that the main takeaway is like, you know, what made us feel so excited about it is complete creative control. Yeah. And once we had mastered the technical side to some extent, the creativity was just flowing, and it felt really good to just make music. And I think that that's something that offering like these separate spaces, because it's not a recording studio in a school, it's not a recording studio in a building, it's its own little world. And if you talk to any of the people who rent out the studio, they will always say like, it's like I'm stepping into my own little world and I can just be as I am for a little while, do my music how I want to, and not even think about time, not even think about like, you know, the end game or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really cool to hear how people talk about it, because it really is like I'm going to go into Narnia for a little bit and just kind of experience this as its own thing. That's really cool.
So much so that we have an artist that like comes from New Jersey to use our studios. Because we don't have one in New Jersey yet. Because he'd rather do that than and be able to record himself in the space that we've created for him, than rather than using like a traditional professional recording studio. And I want to take a second to highlight, we're kind of, I don't know exactly your guys' ages, but I mean, I would say we're like 10 years ahead of basically kind of what you're starting on, right? Whether you continue in audio or not, to highlight some of the emotional things that are happening right now as we look in hindsight. I mean, you mentioned just like how cool it was that they were able to get these mics for you. Like what this school did to enable you means a lot to you.
Yeah.
And as you look back in your life, you're going to say, you know, those are the things that inspired confidence in you, that inspired creativity, that really was a huge foundation of like, for the first time I felt like somebody was caring enough, not about just like me, like they love me, like these general feelings, but like they injected themselves in a meaningful way that enabled me to fulfill a passion and carry it to whatever extent I wanted to. Yeah. And that's what providing resources does, is we unlock your personal ability, that creative control to say, I want to take this to whatever extent I want to, and you get to be enabled to learn whatever skills you want to learn, whether they're soft skills, all the emotional things that come through music. I mean, the emotional literature I should say emotional literacy that comes from like having to try and turn your feelings and your experiences into music is
crazy. It's crazy.
Right? And so whether it's through podcasting or music production or whatever the technical skills that you're learning, you are laying the foundation, especially at the age that you're at now, you're laying the foundation for all of the high value skills that you're going to have for the rest of your life. Yeah. I mean, so much of what the band was for me was like having to book shows, I was like trying to make merch. Todd talked a lot about, me buying all this equipment and trying to learn how to use it. The soft skills that came from that, the managerial skills, the like, okay, I can negotiate with people. All of those things are primary skills that really are the foundation to our success today. So
yeah, it's the idea of like I mean, to give you like a one-liner quote, it's the idea of like, once you remove the ceiling, the sky's the limit kind of thing. And our whole idea is like, we're the construction guys that come and like do the reverse and we take your ceiling away so that you can reach the sky as your limit, right? Which I think is super cool. And like Tyler said, a lot of these skills, they translate into so many areas of your life, you know? Like I look at, my main job is mixing. People send the raw files to me and I polish them up, make them sound radio ready, right?
Yeah.
And I think that skill has been informed by other areas of my life and has informed other areas of my life. One thing I've been really into lately, this is kind of nerdy, I love learning about, researching, and watching people do speed runs in video games.
Right, yeah.
Speed runs I think are fascinating because they take so much meticulous time and effort to find the most optimal way to approach playing the game, right? You know, whether that's like a Metroidvania or like something like a Zelda game or whatever, it doesn't matter. I think speedruns are fascinating because there is so much step-by-step processing going through a 20-minute video, right? And that has informed the way that I approach mixing music. Like it's been, how can I optimize these steps? How can I make these quicker? How can I get it to the client sooner while still maintaining the highest level of quality, you know? Yeah. And it's like, you see the exact inverse too, like mixing influences the way that I approach my personal relationships and stuff like that. The way I cook is largely influenced by mixing. It's a lot of like, how do I make these elements blend well together? Like, what should be the focus in this part of the mix? And you know, how do I make these ingredients blend together? Yeah. What's the focus in this dish? So, I would say that like anybody should get into the idea, like they should get into audio, if not to like pursue it as like a professional thing, to at least, you know, explore. I mean, not to get particularly religious, but there's a story in the Bible. It's about the master of the house gives his servants, he calls them talents, which is just money, I guess, you know. He gives each of them a different number, and then when he comes back, you know, a few of them had doubled the money that he had given them, right? Which can be taken as like investing or whatever. But I like to see it as like, if you are given the opportunity and have the ability to pursue a particular skill or to develop a talent in a particular sphere, you should do that. Because even if you don't pursue that professionally, it will change your life in other areas, which I think is something that's so fascinating, which is why I think that it really is this idea of audio production should be accessible for everyone. Because there might be someone here who has an amazing voice or who has an amazing ear for producing like, you know, a hip hop song or something like that never would have even considered it if you didn't give them what, you know, we're trying to give people right now. Yeah. Which I think is the cool thing about it is, you know, music, in my opinion, is baseline human behavior. We were doing it before we even invented money, right? So why shouldn't it be as accessible again like it was before we invented money?
Right, yeah, totally.
So that's kind of, I think, a lot of the platform we take is accessibility, but, you know, without sacrificing.
Yeah.
Right?
And sometimes the ceiling's like within us too.
Yeah.
Like we need to remove it. And it kind of reminds me of the hero's journey, like the classic hero's journey. We need to take a step that sometimes can seem a little risky. It'll be really hard to do, but eventually, like if we wouldn't have done that step, we probably would have ended up doing nothing for the rest of our life.
Sometimes that step is a bit of a kick in the pants too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to circle back, so The Alchemist was a book that we all read, and I think you guys have probably read at some point at Paradigm. It's a big Paradigm book. So the beginning of the book has the main character, Santiago, basically kind of thrown into his journey by the guy called the King of Salem or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That king never shows up ever again in the book. He's literally just there to be like, all right, go do it. Right?
Yeah.
And that's all that he needed in order to pursue the rest of his journey, right? And I think that that's something where it's like, exactly what you're saying. Sometimes you just need something to get rid of that ceiling, you know, to get rid of the block, to kind of kick you on to the beginning of your journey. And then all of a sudden you're just moving and you never stop moving. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the beautiful thing. I love that book for the way that it kind of depicts this idea of not necessarily like personal growth as much as allowing yourself to take your own walls down, to remove your own ceilings and everything, right? I think that that's a very beautiful theme in the book is letting go of your inhibitions and everything. And I think that having something to be like, there's literally no reason for you not to do this is the kick that everyone needs, is the ceiling remover that everyone needs to kind of get started on their journey, right? Getting these mics for you was like that ceiling remover in the way to kind of start doing this. And I think that that's like, I mean, obviously what we want, but like you said, like when you have that in your head, like, you know, sometimes it's tough to get rid of it on your own. It's possible and everything, but I mean, that's why we have mentors, right? That's what I like about Paradigm is this idea, like you said earlier, as soon as you take a little bit of investment, those mentors, and then like I said, they get to extract the creativity out of you.
So we are sadly out of time, but we ask all of our guests to challenge our listeners with something. And so if you guys could each come up with a challenge that our listeners could take away from this.
Like a missionary thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
A challenge.
Say do that thing that was in the back of your mind thinking, oh, I should get into this. And, you know, whether it's learn a new instrument or, you know, a new skill or even just calling up a friend you haven't seen in a long time. There's probably something kind of nagging at you in the back. And it's really easy to forget that. But I think just sit down. It's difficult, but
I think
do it.
Yeah, I think to couple along with that too, like be the friend that tells your friend to do the thing. Like remove the ceiling for your friend, I guess, for lack of a better term.
It's actually something I've really been trying to do lately.
Yeah, be that friend.
Maybe not
those
forcibly,
people.
but
Just do it.
Give them a little kick.
You are that friend.
I am that friend.
Hey, buddy, if you done that thing, you
I will come over.
Threaten them with violence.
There we go.
Don't do that.
I gotta know what happens next.
I don't know. It works a little bit, you know.
The Duolingo thing.
I don't encourage it, but I think Todd
that was
stole
my
your
thing.
thing.
Yeah, wow. It was
Your thing, and then my
I shouldn't
thing
say
was
stole. Yeah, he added on
yours,
to.
so.
I mean, once one thing has been said, it's difficult to remove myself from kind of that context. Right. But I think I will stay within that context, and maybe the perspective that I'll just throw into it is to not only do it, obviously throw yourself into it, do it, especially when it's difficult. Learn to love the difficulty. If you have, I think it's a given. It almost doesn't even need to be said, and it almost just sounds like discouraging to say it out loud, but I'll say it and then I'll say something encouraging after. If you haven't learned to love the difficulty, there are very few things, to keep it broad, there are very few things in life that you will feel fulfillment with. Yeah. You've got to learn to love when it gets difficult if you're going to have the ultimate gratification from that thing.
Otherwise, you'll just give up before it begins.
Yeah. I think all of the most beautiful things in my life, even including my friendships, you know, have only become invaluable once they were difficult, after they were difficult.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty difficult.
Are you saying I'm difficult?
I'm just saying we were all teenagers at one point. So.
Loving you is difficult.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you could please rate us 5 stars on iTunes, that helps us a ton. If you could go on Spotify and answer our question and answer, that would mean the world to us. And if you have any questions or concerns, please email us at podcast@paradigmhigh.org, or you can DM us on Instagram at the Paradigm Pod. Thank you guys so much for listening, and keep engaging in the great conversation.